All right, so get this. We're diving deep into American foods. But here's the twist. Our source material is an article called American Foods That Should Be Banned.
Whoa, that's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, a little dramatic. Right? Don't worry, we're not actually advocating for food bans.
Okay, good. I was about to get worried.
But, it's a catchy title, and it makes you think, right?
Definitely grabs your attention. So what's the real deal with this article then?
It's all about exploring the concerns around some common American food choices. Things like health risks, sustainability, and even some ethical questions.
Ah, I see. Looking at the bigger picture beyond just food is tasty. So it's not just about saying these foods are bad.
Exactly. It's more about understanding why these foods are often called into question, and most
Good.
importantly,
Finding some alternatives.
you got it. The article actually suggests alternatives for each of the foods it lists as ban-worthy.
Sounds like a plan. So what kind of foods are we talking about here?
Well, we've got a lineup of 10 categories. Everything from processed cheese to sugary drinks to fast food.
Yeah.
Even those colorful cereals marketed to kids.
Oh, I have a feeling this is going to be a fascinating conversation. Let's dig in.
Absolutely. Let's start with something classic. Processed cheese. Those perfectly square, melty slices.
Ah, the American cheese slice. Convenient for sure, but the article makes a distinction. Natural cheese versus these processed versions. It's all about the ingredients.
Yeah, natural cheese seems pretty straightforward. Milk, cultures, salt, and that's about it. But then you look at those processed slices, and it's a whole different story.
Right. Wait, emulsifiers, artificial flavors, it becomes a science experiment.
It does make you wonder what's really going on in there. But I have to admit, there's something nostalgic about those bright, orange grilled cheese sandwiches from childhood.
I get it, the nostalgia factor is real. But the article highlights the potential health downsides. Processed cheese tends to be high in sodium and saturated fat, which over time
Would lead to health issues like high blood pressure or heart disease.
Exactly.
Okay, so processed cheese, not the best choice. What's the alternative? Are we giving up grilled cheese forever?
Definitely not. There's a whole world of natural cheese out there, each with its own unique flavors and textures. Think cheddar, Gouda, feta. They melt beautifully and they taste amazing. Plus, they're a better choice nutritionally.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Now let's talk about a true American icon. Soda. I mean, sugary drinks in general.
This is a big one. The article emphasizes just how much sugar we consume through these beverages. And it's not just soda, it's energy drinks, sweetened teas, all sorts of things. And often the culprit is high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, we've all been there, reaching for that soda for a quick pick-me-up in the afternoon. But I guess it's easy to forget about the sugar overload.
Right. And the problem is these drinks are basically empty calories. They give you a quick energy burst, but no real nutritional value. And over time, all that sugar.
Well, it can lead to weight gain, type 2 diabetes, and a bunch of other problems.
You got it.
So what are we supposed to drink if we're trying to be healthier? Just water.
Water is always a great choice. But there are other options that don't rely on loads of sugar. Sparkling water with a splash of fruit juice, unsweetened tea, or even just water infused with some fresh fruit and herbs.
Those do sound refreshing. Okay, now for the ultimate indulgence. Fast food. I love a good burger and fries, but I have a feeling this is where the article gets tough.
Well, it acknowledges the convenience and affordability of fast food, but then it challenges us to think about the downsides.
Because, let's be honest, those fries are just so tempting. But there's got to be more to the story.
Fast food is often loaded with things like trans fats, tons of sodium, and preservatives. And beyond our own health, there's also the environmental impact to consider.
That's true. I don't always think about that side of things.
Yeah.
What are some of the concerns there?
Things like deforestation and greenhouse gas emissions from industrial meat production, it's all connected.
So are we saying goodbye to burgers and fries forever?
Not necessarily. There are ways to enjoy those flavors in a healthier way. Think homemade burgers with lean meat or even plant-based patties, and instead of deep frying those fries, you could bake them for a similar crispy texture.
Okay, I could get on board with that. All right, now for something that takes me right back to childhood. Those packaged snack cakes and pastries. The Twinkies, the Ding Dongs, all those classic treats.
Ah, yes, the nostalgia snacks. But the article points out that these treats are often full of highly processed ingredients, things like hydrogenated oils, artificial flavors, high fructose corn syrup.
It's funny, those snacks are designed to last forever on the shelf, but once I opened a package, they're gone in a flash. But I guess those ingredients aren't doing us any favors.
Right, all that sugar and trans fat can contribute to a whole host of health issues, from weight gain to diabetes to heart disease.
Okay, so what are we supposed to do when those sweet cravings hit? Just say no to dessert.
Not at all. There are plenty of delicious and healthy alternatives. You could bake homemade treats using whole ingredients, or even just enjoy some fruit with nuts or a bit of dark chocolate.
Those are good ideas. Okay, let's talk about something that might surprise some folks. Artificially colored cereals. Those boxes with the bright colors and cartoon characters, usually aimed at kids.
Right, and the article highlights the artificial dyes used to create those vibrant colors. There are concerns about the potential impact those dyes might have, particularly on children.
Yeah, I've even heard that some countries have banned certain food dyes. What's the thinking behind that?
Some studies have linked artificial dyes to behavioral issues in kids, things like hyperactivity and difficulty concentrating.
That's concerning. So, what's a healthier way to start the day? Are we doomed to plain oatmeal forever?
No way. There are plenty of cereals out there that don't rely on artificial colors or tons of sugar. Look for whole grain options with low sugar content or get creative with homemade oatmeal. You can add fruit, nuts, a drizzle of honey for natural sweetness.
Those are great tips. Okay, let's take a trip back in time and talk about margarine. Remember all those ads claiming it was a healthier choice than butter?
Oh yeah, the margarine versus butter debate. Well, the article brings up the issue of trans fats found in many margarines and hydrogenated oils.
Wait, so margarine isn't the heart-healthy savior it claimed to be?
It turns out those trans fats are actually worse for our health than saturated fats. They raise our bad cholesterol and lower the good kind, increasing the risk of heart disease.
Wow, so those healthy claims were kind of misleading.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So what's the bottom line when it comes to fats? What should we be choosing?
Opt for natural fats whenever possible. Olive oil, avocados, nuts, even real butter in moderation. It's all about understanding that not all fats are created equal.
Okay, good to know. Now, let's be honest. Who doesn't love deep-fried food? From crispy onion rings to golden fried chicken, there's something so satisfying about that crunch.
The article acknowledges our love for fried food, but reminds us about those potential consequences.
I can practically taste those crispy treats. But what are the specific downsides we should be aware of?
When food is deep fried, it absorbs a lot of oil, which can lead to weight gain, heart disease, and other health problems. Plus, the oils used for frying often contain unhealthy trans fats.
So are we saying goodbye to all things fried?
Not necessarily. There are healthier ways to enjoy those crispy textures. Air frying and oven baking are great alternatives.
Okay, that's a relief. Now get ready for a sugar rush, because we're talking about those excessively sugary desserts, those towering cakes, milkshakes that could feed a small army.
The article raises concerns about those over-the-top desserts and the excessive sugar and calories they contain.
I have such a sweet tooth, but I've definitely had desserts that were so sweet they actually hurt my teeth. Is there a way to satisfy those cravings without all the negative consequences?
Absolutely. Experiment with natural sweeteners like honey or maple syrup, and incorporate whole ingredients like fruits and nuts into your desserts for natural sweetness and added nutritional value.
Those are great tips. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about those prepackaged frozen meals. So convenient, especially on busy weeknights.
Right, they seem like a lifesaver, but the article points out some hidden costs. They often contain high amounts of sodium, preservatives, and low-quality ingredients.
Yeah, I've noticed those meals always taste way saltier than anything I'd cook at home. Why is that?
Brands often use a lot of salt and artificial flavors to make up for the lack of freshness and make those processed ingredients taste better.
So, what are we supposed to do when we're short on time? Is there a healthier way to do convenient meals?
You can try preparing and freezing your own meals using fresh ingredients. That way you control the quality and avoid the excess sodium and preservatives.
That's a great idea. And finally, we're ending with a category that might surprise some folks. It's all about those sugary condiments and sauces. Ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressings, those innocent little additions to our meals.
We often don't think of condiments as big sugar sources, but those tablespoons can really add up.
Wait, even ketchup, I always thought it was more tangy than sweet.
Ketchup does have that savory flavor, but it also contains quite a bit of added sugar. And the same goes for many other popular condiments like barbecue sauce, and salad dressings.
So are we supposed to eat our food completely plain? No more sauces?
Not at all. You can make your own sauces and dressings using fresh herbs, spices, olive oil, and vinegar. It gives you total control over the ingredients and lets you adjust the sweetness to your liking.
Those are some fantastic ideas. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. 10 American food categories that have sparked some debate. But remember, it's not about banning these foods entirely. It's about being mindful of our choices and understanding what we're eating.
Exactly. It's about empowering you with knowledge so you can make the best choices for your health and well-being. Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive, looking at these American foods.
And I know that article title, American Foods That Should Be Banned, might have sounded a little extreme.
Definitely attention-grabbing.
Yeah. But as we talked about before, we're not actually advocating for food bans here.
It's more nuanced than that.
Right. It's really about understanding the deeper message behind that statement.
It's a critique of the system, the American food system and all the things that influence what we eat.
You're right. It's about asking why certain foods are everywhere, even though we know there are health risks or environmental concerns.
So then where does personal responsibility come in? That's something the article brings up, right? This idea of individual choices versus bigger systemic change.
Yeah, that's a great point. So where do we draw the line? How much is on us as individuals and how much is influenced by, well, everything else?
Okay, so think about it this way. On one hand, we all have the power to choose what we eat, right? We can read labels, cook more at home, try to buy fresh ingredients.
But it's not always that easy.
No, it's not, because we're constantly bombarded with advertising, marketing, all these messages telling us to eat processed food, sugary drinks, fast food.
And those options are everywhere. And often they're cheaper, too.
Exactly. So it becomes this complex issue of, yeah, we have personal responsibility, but the system isn't always making it easy to make those healthy choices.
So it's like a push and pull.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to do the right thing, but the whole food environment's pushing back.
And that's why I think that word ban is so interesting in the article. It's provocative, right?
For sure.
But it highlights this need for bigger change, systemic change. It's not about taking away our freedom to choose. It's about making the healthier choice, the easier choice.
So, okay, if we're not actually banning these foods, what can we do? What are some more realistic solutions to actually shift things toward a healthier, more sustainable system?
Well, there are a lot of ideas out there. Some people talk about stricter regulations on advertising, especially for unhealthy foods targeted at kids.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, those commercials are everywhere.
Right. So if we can limit that influence, especially on kids, that could be a good starting point. Another strategy is using policies to encourage healthier foods, things like subsidies for fruits and vegetables or maybe taxes on sugary drinks.
So making healthy options more affordable and accessible.
Exactly. And then there's education. If people understand more about the impact of their food choices, they're more likely to make conscious decisions.
Yeah, knowledge is power, right? I feel like more and more people are becoming aware of where their food comes from and how it's produced.
That's a really encouraging trend. Consumers can drive a lot of change. When people start supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, the sustainable way, that sends a powerful message.
So this article, even though it's got that strong title, is really starting a conversation. It's about looking at the whole system and figuring out how to improve it, not just blaming individuals.
Exactly. It's a call to action. It's saying, hey, let's think critically about our food choices and start advocating for change.
And this is where it gets really interesting to me because it's not just about personal health anymore. It's about our communities, our planet, thinking about the future.
Exactly. Our food choices have these ripple effects. They impact climate change. They impact social justice issues, even economic equity.
It's all connected. It's kind of mind-blowing how food, something we need to survive, touches so many aspects of life.
Food is more than just fuel. It's part of our culture, our communities, our identities.
Did the article talk about ethical concerns at all, like with animal welfare?
It touched on it briefly, mentioning some concerns about industrial meat production, but it didn't go too deep. It's definitely an important part of the conversation, though, how we treat animals within our food system.
It's amazing how this whole deep dive started with this list of American foods, and now we're talking about all these big interconnected issues.
It's the power of asking questions, right? And being open to different perspectives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. What's the main takeaway message? What do we want our listeners to think about?
I think the most important thing is recognizing that We have power. We can make a difference. Even small changes in our food choices can have a big impact.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about taking steps in the right direction.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection. And remembering that food is something to be enjoyed, but also respected. Okay, now let's move on to some practical tips.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into American foods. We've covered so much ground, from processed cheese to sugary drinks to fast food.
We even talked about those colorful cereals that kids love.
Oh yeah, and those tempting snack cakes too.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring these foods and thinking about their impact on our health, the environment, and even the ethical side of things.
Definitely. And what's really striking to me is how much power we actually have to influence the system just by making different choices.
Absolutely. Our everyday decisions can make a real difference.
So let's get practical. What are some tangible steps our listeners can take to start making those changes? What really resonated with you from the article?
Well, one of the simplest yet most effective things you can do is cook more meals at home. It gives you control over the ingredients, lets you try out healthier cooking methods.
I've heard that before, but it always feels a bit overwhelming.
I get it. It can seem daunting, but you don't have to become a chef overnight.
So like baby steps.
Exactly. Start with simple recipes. Focus on fresh whole ingredients and gradually build your cooking skills.
What about those nights when you're just too tired to cook? Are there any shortcuts?
Batch cooking can be a lifesaver, like spend a few hours on the weekend prepping a big batch of soup or a grain bowl, and then you've got meals ready to go for the whole week.
Okay, that makes sense. What about beyond the kitchen? What are some other ways we can become more conscious about our food choices?
Being a conscious consumer is huge, like really reading labels, paying attention to portion sizes, and choosing products from companies that align with your values.
So it's about voting with our dollars.
Yeah.
Supporting businesses that are doing things in a sustainable and ethical way.
You got it. And don't underestimate the power of community, like connecting with local farmers markets, maybe joining a community garden, even taking a cooking class.
It's like building a support system, finding people who are also passionate about food and making healthy choices.
Exactly. It's more fun and inspiring when you're doing it together.
Speaking of community, are there any organizations or resources you'd recommend for people who want to get more involved?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many incredible groups working to make our food system better. Advocating for policy changes, supporting food banks, educating people about healthy eating.
So it's not just about individual change, it's about working together to make a difference for everyone.
Right? It's about creating a system that supports healthy choices for all of us, regardless of income or background.
I love that. It feels really empowering to know that we're not alone in this, that there are people working together to create positive change.
Absolutely. And even small changes can make a big difference.
It all starts with awareness and that willingness to make those changes, even if they seem small.
And remember, it's not just about what we eat, but also how much we eat.
That's a good point. We often forget about portion control.
Exactly. It's about listening to our bodies eating until we're satisfied, not overly full.
And taking the time to savor our food, appreciate the flavors and textures.
Food can be such a source of joy and connection,
Absolutely. It brings people together, creates memories, nourishes our bodies and souls.
And by making conscious choices about what we eat, we can honor that connection and contribute to a healthier and more sustainable future for everyone.
That's a beautiful way to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.